Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to bring you an all-star panel about the idea of there is an I in team and how sports and society are being positively impacted by athletics, athletes, and the media of sports playing a role in giving a voice to what people care about today. I'm Jasmine Maeda, founder of Round 21, a brand that merges art and sports to give athletes a voice with what they play with. And I'm joined today with this panel, kicking off with Emeka Fike, who's a VP of marketing at ESPN. He spent many, many years at the cornerstone of how media is impacting what we see every day and how we think about sports. Tyrell Kirkham, who's a legend in sports, having played multiple leadership roles with teams and leagues and currently is with the Detroit Pistons. And Monique Billings, who's a WNBA player, all-star commentator and broadcaster, currently joining us from Russia. And I'm so excited to spend this time talking through the idea of how decades ago, the concept of there is no I in team was the predominant way that we thought about athletes, and how today, how sports and athletes are absolutely playing a role in impacting how we see society and impacting social change. So the first thing I wanted to do was have kind of an opening lightning round and give everyone on the panel a chance to introduce themselves. Monique Billings will be speaking from the athlete's perspective. She's a forward for the Atlanta Dream. Monique, do you mind introducing yourself to kick us off?
Yes, thank you for that great intro, Jasmine. So excited to be a part of this panel. My name is Monique Billings, going into my 4th season with the Atlanta Dream for the WNBA. I am also an analyst for Pac-12 Networks, and I also play overseas basketball, and I'm currently in Orenburg, Russia. So I'm pretty far across the world right now, but I'm enjoying my time here. I love culture and talking about media, sports, and just having great conversations like these. So I'm really excited.
Awesome. Emeka, do you mind introducing yourself? You'll be speaking from the sports marketing and media perspective, currently at the leader in sports, ESPN.
Yeah, I'm Emeka Fike, VP of Sports Marketing at ESPN. So in my role, what I do is I oversee the consumer and brand marketing for live sports, whether that's the NBA, the NFL, UFC, college football, soccer, so forth. I've been at ESPN slightly over 18 years, and I've had a chance to see sport evolve in so many different ways, and I'm excited to be here with the panelists and with you to talk about that.
Awesome. And Tyrell, you'll be speaking from the brand perspective as VP at the Detroit Pistons in a new role. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join the rest of the esteemed panelists. Tyrell Kirkham, industry veteran, I'd say. Recently joined the Detroit Pistons, but previously spent some time with the Los Angeles Rams, 6 years with the Brooklyn Nets, and 8 years with the New York Mets. My task with the Detroit Pistons is to lead brand and marketing strategy, not only to amplify what's happening on court, but to make sure we're creating authentic touch points and storytelling around our commitment to the community, our commitment to our players, and finding unique avenues to help us accomplish that.
Awesome. So just to dive in, a question for all of us to ground the rest of the time. How do we, as a panel from media, the athlete's voice, as well as brand, define expression? How do you incorporate expression in your own life to control a narrative? Maybe Emeka, you can kick us off.
Yeah, when I think about expression, whether it's individually or through the lens of sport, I sort of take the long view on just the role sports has played in society. I just think historically, sports has always been probably one of the best platforms and also, on the forefront of expression. And I think as we look at today, you've never seen probably greater expression in terms of the role sports are playing, whether it's the athletes, whether it's the teams, whether it's a number of different media partners. So I think sports are always going to play that sort of leading role of expression and how we do it.
piggyback off of that, I would say expression is just using the world as your paintbrush, using your experiences, surroundings, dreams, and everything that shapes you to demonstrate who you are and just who you want to express yourself as to the rest of the world. I see that as I'm traveling everywhere and just how different people across the world express themselves. So it's always interesting seeing how that unfolds in sports, off the court, on the field, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I think you both hit the nail on the head. And from a team and brand perspective, all of those sort of expressors and providing the true meaning of what we're trying to articulate, it's up to the team and the brand to help amplify that message. So in my day in and day out role and responsibility, I'm tasked myself with making sure that I can provide a platform, an opportunity to amplify those voices and truly give the expressors an opportunity to express.
That's great. And we've seen, you know, everything from pregame outfits to customized shoes with messaging. And especially last year's, particularly in the NBA, NHL, NFL, this moment of using pregame, in-game, post-game as a platform for speaking voices of change in society that needed to be heard. I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper, maybe with you, Tyrell, around, you know, how the Pistons are doing some very impactful things, from hiring Big Sean as the new creative director to community service. You know, in your role, how are you leveraging art and creative expression to support and empower players and shift the culture, even in the city of Detroit, outside of the sport of basketball?
Yeah, I think sports in whole, but specifically basketball, there's it sort of transcends culture, and there's this crossover throughout, whether it's, you know, gaming, fashion, social injustice. Like there's an opportunity for us to lean in, and our players are very interested in all of those elements. What our approach is we really like to really align with our community relations department, also align with our players, understand exactly what they're looking to lean into, and then from there we craft our strategy. So specifically in Detroit, you know, we want to serve the community in which we play, and yes, it's important to put the ball through the hoop, but it's equally as important to ensure that we're hitting home on the things that really matter to the people that are in our backyard. So constant communication, understanding what the needs are, and then putting a tactical plan in place is critical. And we've had a lot of success both in our brand campaigns, our player-led initiatives, in which we can lean into mentorship, or if players are interested in providing opportunities to amplify small businesses during a pandemic. That's where we can lean in and have our players play an integral role, and then help them amplify that from a team and brand perspective.
And you're feeling like that's all just one part of being a part of the Detroit Pistons organization. They're not separate silos, and
They're not.
Yeah.
No, long gone are the days where it's sort of separate buckets. Like you need the fully immersive approach to truly provide the impact and to create the alignment from basketball to business. A lot of it starts at our leadership side, where basketball and business sit under one roof. We can constantly ideate not only with our players, but our executives and our community, right? Looking at that from those three tranches and then developing a strategy around that allows for greater impact.
And Monique, from your perspective, I guess worth mentioning again with feeling, you're dialing in today from Russia, you know, international play, international voices, domestic issues, being rooted, you know, being born and raised here in the States. How do you feel like having a platform as an athlete has shifted? And, you know, where do you see the impact maybe still needing to be felt?
Well, kind of like what Tyrell just said, it's kind of just understanding that there's a greater purpose. Sports are everything, but as he had said, culture and social activism and things of that sort transcend sports. And so the fact that athletes such as myself are able to use our platforms to discuss topics, tough topics, good topics, everything in between, that are on our hearts and that we feel called to, is huge. And it's just about understanding your platform and just what you want your voice to, how do you want to use your voice? And that's kind of what I've seen in my last 4 years of being a professional athlete. understanding how to use my platform effectively. And for me, I want to be a light for young women and young girls all over the world. I want to bridge the gap between women's athletics and everyday womanhood and show young women and girls that they don't have to be separate. You know, you could be a feminine athlete and still get buckets and kick butt on the court, and those two don't have to be separate. And so that's how I try to use my platform. So just being mindful of what you're putting out there in the world and just understanding, again, that there is a greater purpose that comes with sports.
So just in the spirit of athletes having a voice in the world, is there an international or domestic difference, or even some of the issues around playing in a league, the WNBA versus the NBA? Is there anything else that you feel like there's still work to be done?
Absolutely. I mean, being international right now, I'm seeing that the women who I play with don't have the same opportunity to express themselves. I've played in 8 different countries for 8 different teams all across the world. And I'm so privileged to be able to play in the States and live in the States and be born in the States and be able to use my platform and to use my voice how I please. Because like I said, a lot of the women who I interact with and play with across the world don't have that same opportunity. And so I even want to be an advocate for them. You know, I try to bring that light and try to bring a little bit of home to every single country that I play in. And I try to make every team better than how I found it. That's always the goal, but always just being grateful for the opportunity of being able to use my voice, because not everyone has that opportunity. And so I hope that we could see in years to come that opportunity for women to be able to, and men, women and men across the world, to be able to use their platform and use their voice abroad as well, like how we do in the States.
Yeah, that idea of being a voice or an advocate for voices that maybe aren't often heard certainly came through last year, but also to know that from your firsthand perspective, being able to do that internationally is also still an opportunity is pretty impactful. Emeka, in your impressive career at ESPN, you've witnessed many big moments in sports, and obviously we're here talking about expression in sports. How has the way athletes' creative expression and the intentionality of the platform that they have evolved over the years from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. The example I use, and it's looking back at it, is The Last Dance. I think, we were all sort of during COVID looking for some like piece of sports programming to return. And I think The Last Dance provided such a really cool way of connecting with sports. But like in watching it, what you end up seeing is like athletes have always led, sort of culture. Athletes have always been sort of had that platform for expression. And I think the difference that we're seeing now versus in the past is that in the past was probably just for the few, right? Who could break through, who could have that platform. But now it's more democratized, right? Like with the evolution of the media landscape, the number of different media partners, the number of different, tech partners, whether it's Twitter, Snapchat, even Clubhouse coming out now, there are more ways to ultimately express yourself than there's ever been before. So now that's given a huge, platform and, number of different ways of distribution to athletes. So I think in my mind, fundamentally, athletes have always led sort of this idea of expression. But before, it's for the few. Now it's democratized in a way where every athlete has the way to express themselves, in a way that it's authentic to them and in a way that they ultimately will be comfortable with. And I think that's probably the coolest part of what we're seeing right now.
So Emeka was just talking about how the media landscape has changed, but more so because of the democratization of athletes having a voice and being able to distribute it across many forms and formats of media. How are you seeing this type of accessibility to have a point of view around what's happening in the world come through either players or the team that you're leading, the Detroit Pistons?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really about everyone having a voice. I think Emeka hit on it before with respect to just a few having voices in the past. It doesn't make a difference if you're the 15th man of the roster or the star or the team who might in the past shy away from controversial subjects. Now it's everyone's duty, and people feel empowered to truly speak up and express themselves. And I've been around the business quite some time, and coming up, early in my career and with the New York Mets and baseball, a lot of the things that you see happening now with players would never happen. It was that, not say shut up and dribble, but hit the ball, play the game, and then keep everything else offline. And the fact that the platforms exist for people to amplify their voices and for teams to help accomplish that is where I see the biggest change in impact.
Monique, from your perspective, as you play for the Atlanta Dream, and there was such a political narrative last year overall within the league, do you see this opportunity continuing in the future for women's basketball players to continue to have such an active participatory role in what's happening in society, particularly through politics?
Yeah, I definitely do. And for the reason that Tyrell just mentioned of empowerment, I know for our team specifically this past summer, when we had dealt with some political issues, the fact that we were able to come together collectively and figure out how we wanted to address that situation, that empowered us as a team. And wherever you stand politically, when you come together and you unite with your team, there's something that's so special about that. And I'm the type of player, I am more so shy away from speaking on politics. Basketball is my safe haven. That's my safe space. I don't like bringing things into that safe space that make me feel less than or don't empower me. But the fact that I was able to see my teammates who are more politically inclined to speak, that empowered me. And I don't know, I felt their energy and was able just to recognize that it's just bigger than basketball. And I'm here standing with my sisters. I'm here standing in solidarity with them. And there's a lot that needs to happen and a lot of work that needs to be done as we continue being able to use our voice. But those are just special moments that I've had while playing, just seeing the impact that we can have when we come together. We can make change. And being an athlete, especially a female athlete, seeing that change happen and seeing it manifest is inspiring and empowering. And I know that it's also inspiring the younger generation and allowing them to see that, wow, they could do that. Oh, I could do that too, times 10. And then it just continues and domino effects from there.
Monique, I think that's super well said. And, I think there's this like really interesting debate, especially over the last year, of this idea of like, can sport still be a safe haven and an escape, plus also, be a platform to help, advance, things that, are, challenging us in society. And I think, the way I look at it is like sports needs to do both, right? Like fundamentally, and a foundational value of sports is that it has to be an escape. It has to be, place where you can go, and whether it's mental health, whether it's, being able to, your craft, like sports has to provide that, opportunity. But that doesn't prevent sports from taking incremental roles from time to time, in terms of helping us advance society forward. And that's always been the role sports has played. And the way I look at it, I was just watching, it's a funny kind of a reference for me, an analogy. I was just watching again The Dark Knight, and at the end of the movie, Commissioner Gordon, I think, says to Batman, like, hey, why are you, doing this? Why are you sort of running? And Batman basically says, like, I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be. And I think that's sort of sports, like sports is whatever society needs it to be at that time. It's not a role that it's going to play all the time, but when it has to, it's willing to step up. With athletes like you, what you did with your team, like it's willing to step up and help society move forward while keeping that foundational value of like what you just said. It's a safe haven for you to be a great basketball player.
Yeah, and I think
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
No, I was just going to say, I've been around sports a long time, and you look back, whether it was 9/11 and baseball being played and what that meant for uplifting a city and a nation and the world for that matter, or Jason Collins when I was with the Brooklyn Nets and he came out and what that meant for pushing it forward. And now spending my time at the Pistons, and we have this Pistons power humanity mindset. As long as we lead with that, not losing sight of the box score, but just thinking about powering humanity, all the rest of the stuff will work itself out. And, the commitment to athletes like yourself and taking that safe haven and feeling empowered when the time feels right and doing it with sisterhood and brotherhood is truly what's the power of sports that can't be replicated.
Everyone has a role within sports, just like being on a team. Everyone has a role, whether you're the main guy out there, main girl out there, or you're the 15th player. Everyone has a role and everyone adds in their own way. And so I've found that even though I don't specifically like discussing politics, I found my role, and Emeka had touched on it. Mental health is big for me. Just wellness in the athlete space and addressing that, because I feel like that gets brushed to the side and covered up oftentimes. And so I found that is my role. I might not be the one talking about politics, the one yelling all the time, which, hey, respect to those who do. That's how you use your platform. But I like to use my platform to discuss wellness and to discuss how we could be well and how we can keep sports a safe haven and a safe space.
Yeah, and I think that impact on society is really coming through the humanity. Tyrell, what you were just describing is, the largest impact on seeing what's the potential that we all have, and whether that's through taking care of mental health, or if it's through camaraderie and connection, or if it's through standing for something you believe in. There's plenty of flexibility within that kind of conceptual territory. If you have an impact on humanity and society, what role do you want to take? And Emeka, to build on the Dark Knight metaphor, Round 21, takes great care to make sure that there are moments of lightheartedness and a feeling of optimism and joy, so that when those heavy symbols or messages need to come through, people are open and willing to lean into what's being said. Because I think that's what sports does for us, right? We feel that thrill of victory, and then we come together despite our backgrounds. And then when there's a moment of heavy that we need to all take a critical look at, we're open to that, because there's been kind of an ebb and flow. So that's a great metaphor. Okay, I think, we're going to spend some time now just closing it out, but a little lightning round. Sports is impacting all of us, culture, society, humans, and what we do and what we hope for sports to play a role is, amplifying values that the world needs to see, whether that's through teamwork or community or how we win collectively, not just individuals. And that's, what the theme "There is an I in team" is all about. There's still team and these collective wins. But, from each of your unique perspectives, team, athletes, media, I'm just kind of go around and around robin, Tyrell, what do you hope in the future the role sports can play? If you had the opportunity to speak to the world as we don't yet know it, what role from the team's perspective do you feel like sports can play?
Yeah, I think sports will continue to bridge the gap. I look at a lot of the brand work that the Pistons have done since I've arrived. And, we made some conscious decisions. We didn't, we have our primary Detroit Pistons logo, but we also put our logo 313 in a round ball. And some people might say it's a secondary or tertiary mark. For us, it's a greater purpose. It truly ties back to how we service our community, how our players align with those needs. We align with their needs and continue to provide opportunities and resources for those in the 313. And building on that, we also led with this sort of D-up mantra. And while D-up basketball connotation, we also look at D-up as the continuing and rising of Detroit, the city, and how we can help sort of elevate those in our neighborhood and backyard, and do it collaboratively and collectively, so that we are one focused on one goal, and trying to win basketball games, but also provide meaningful value and resource to those in our backyard.
Well, there's a lot of artistry in that. The D of us, using it as a symbol for both Detroit as well as what defense is, and then the 3-1-3 as a mess. That's awesome. That is really great.
Yeah.
Monique, what do you hope for the future in the role from an athlete's perspective that sports can have on society?
I really hope that sports can continue allowing athletes to use their platform and just use the sport itself to express themselves in whatever way that they choose to. I always say I'm an athlete, but I'm a multi-dimensional athlete, and really I'm a Renaissance woman. As an athlete, I use my body as a tool to express my purpose, but I want my light and I want my purpose to be seen and revealed by others, just seen through my life, my relationships, through my work, through how hard I go, and through my passion. And I want to continue paving the way for the future and for the next generation, just like how the path has been paved for me. I saw a post earlier this week. It's Black History Month right now. And so the post said, "We are our ancestors' biggest dreams." And I know my ancestors would be so happy and are smiling down on me. So I just want to continue being a light, leaving that type of legacy, and just allowing for athletes younger who are to come to be able just to dream and dream big, and yeah, just keep the momentum going. I hope sports allows for that to happen.
Monique, you're such an inspiration. For those of you watching and listening, you should really dive into her story and all of the things that she's doing to make sure that her legacy is intact. But it's exciting to feel that your vision is actually going to manifest from exactly what you're doing right now. Emeka, your role, ESPN is a huge microphone, but also media and the media landscape in general. And you're a figure also for people who want to participate in what sports is from a career perspective. What are your thoughts and vision for what sports can mean for the future of society?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we've all had a ton of time to reflect over the last year. And, the thing that I sort of take away from it is that I think sports can actually take a larger leadership role, just not in sports, but in how we shape our society. One example is, when the NBA actually canceled their season because of COVID, like that was probably, I had a ton of friends, text me, like that was probably the first time they started taking the pandemic seriously. And sports sort of set that tone, of like, all right, let's start to like really think about this. Even the teams returning to the bubble and like how to like attack that. Sports led a lot of that thinking in terms of like execution. And I think what I hope is that we can look to sports as a positive force, as almost like a beacon of how our society should be and live. Because like within sports, what do you have? You have collaboration, you have teamwork, you have leadership, you have community, right? You have people sacrificing for the greater good of others so we can get to another level. And I think the world has never needed more the foundational tools that sports provides. And especially like being at home, where you can't necessarily be outside all the time. Sports provides an avenue for physical health and mental health, right? So there's all these things I think sports can do that can help our society forward. And that trickles down into what Monique is saying and what Tyrell is saying in terms of the roles the teams and the athletes play in terms of their form and their expression, because you have to take a leadership role and use your platform and leverage it in the right way to help society move forward. So that's sort of my point of view, is like, I think sports can help us shape a new society and even a better one moving forward.
Well, that is an incredible, optimistic, and positive place to jump off from and begin closing remarks. So I wanted to thank all of you for the time that you've taken, the panelists first for taking time to speak on this very important topic of sport and society, and the fact that there are individuals now in teams, and that voice is very important to affecting and shaping society and culture as we know it. And all of you guys for listening and taking time to immerse yourself in the experience of these panelists. we'll be able to stay in touch if you want. You'll see at the end contact information, LinkedIn information. You're seeing people who really care about what sports is going to be into the future, and we want to make ourselves available, of course. So thank you, everyone, and appreciate this opportunity that South by Southwest has given us.